Hi everybody, it's Grace. Welcome to Eating Peace this week. I'm the author of Grace Note and the teacher of the Eating Peace process, which is an online program. It's coming up soon. And Eating Peace Retreat. I wanted to share with you something really interesting and a little bit edgy today about the Eating Peace process. And that is the fabulous question that I learned first from Byron Katie. When it comes to food and eating, and you have difficult situations, you bump up against problems, anxiety, moments that you are off balance with food and eating or with your body image. What's the worst that could happen? Now, if you're familiar with the work of Byron Katie, this is one of her common questions. What's the worst that could happen? Where I love to apply this, especially when it comes to compulsive behavior, is where you may not ever think it would be applied. So, you have probably heard of the principle that there are underlying or hidden or secret or kind of unconscious beliefs running through the human mind, human experience, and your own life. Something maybe very difficult happens, and then time goes by and you forget about it. And you're actually glad that you forget about it. You don't think about it every day anymore. It's not something that's sort of a dreaded experience on your mind. But there's some part of you that has a little bit of an unfinished business with that thing, and that's kind of on alert to make sure, just in case something smells like that, looks like that, sounds like that, you don't ever want that thing to happen again. It's just like, the old adage that we've all heard. When the child touches the hot stove, they get burned, and then they never touch the hot stove again. Sometimes, what it's like with compulsive behavior, maybe most of the time, it's almost as if you've touched the hot stove of some sort of contact with a human being in your world in life, maybe all the way back to when you were a child, or an encounter or a situation, or like an accident or something traumatic, or just something that caused nervous anxiety to arise in you. It doesn't have to be a huge, deep thing, but something like that's happened. It's like touching the hot stove. And then you never go in a kitchen again, for years, because a stove is in there and it could get hot. It's like there's something sort of innocent and wise, or like smart, kind of, about that kind of approach. It's like very careful, really on the ball, going to make you safe, going to make sure you're protected, and this thing does not ever happen again. The way it showed up for me is, when somebody says those kind of words or has that kind of behavior or acts like that, I am getting away from them, and I'm never going to hang out with anybody like that again, because it's weird and daunting and hurts a little bit and too scary, and they bugged me, they frightened me, really. They scared me. Then I'll start putting that on other people when I didn't really know. I learned in childhood that if somebody looks like that and acts like that, I could be rejected, and I could also be overly controlled. So, as I live my life, when I run into people that have a little bit of a flavor of looking like that and acting like that, I can think of my grandfather, for example. I decided he was really controlling and really judgmental and sort of rejecting people here and there. If somebody was a little bit like my grandfather or reminded me of him, I kind of stayed away from them. I didn't get to know them at all. I had kind of a fearful approach towards certain aspects of humanity that had been in place and started to, gel when I was a child. So, how does this connect to food and eating or compulsive behavior of any kind? What I noticed when I really decided to take a deep dive into understanding my compulsions, which I was really forced to do in my 20s, it was like, you either need to look at this or continue on with this kind of back and forth, like trying to control what can't be controlled, losing control, feeling horrible about myself. That was a horrible cycle to be in. And I was in that cycle for probably 15 years. And I still notice there's a human part of that cycle that exists. You may too. It's just part of the mind that will say, oh, did you make a mistake? I think you might have made a mistake. That'll do that. It's just that for several decades and many years, it hasn't turned into like that, a way out of relief of that, or to forget about it, or to override it, winds up involving food and eating. So it just no longer feels like an option or something that I even think about. And I'm not trying to control anything. It's just not where my mind and my feelings and my experience go. They don't travel there. I know to be honest and close and deep as possible when I am really hitting the mark with what I feel afraid of. When I'm answering that question, what's the worst that could happen? In any moment, if I notice it, what's the worst that could happen? If I really answer that question honestly, no matter how absurd the worst case scenario looks, I'm onto something. I'm going deep. I'm accessing something that feels really true for me. Scary but true. I'm not criticizing and saying, oh, that's so silly, that won't happen, and just overlooking it and brushing it under the rug. I'm actually addressing it. So here's just one thing that you can do today, because I know it's kind of a big and deep topic. What's the worst that could happen? Here's an interesting thing to look at it that's a little bit upside down. If you notice that you feel endlessly like you're trying to stop a certain compulsive behavior and you just don't stop, maybe you control yourself for a while and then kaboom, there you are off in the pits again of either overeating or over something, right? Then you come back. If you notice that that's the way you're living your life, well, what's the worst that could happen if you really quit? If you quit binge eating or overeating, if you quit, compulsive. Somebody was writing to me recently about sexual behavior. I know people have had trouble feeling like they compulsively move from person to person to person, and they want that kind of contact with people. Drinking, drugs, smoking, tons of caffeine, things that sort of alter the mind, right? Things that are experiences, lots of TV, gaming. They can be done without a compulsive process involved. Maybe not for you. Maybe it's better to maybe you would completely lose interest if you had no fear in these other areas and human relationships in your life. You would just completely lose interest. I mean, I have zero and no interest ever in binging, in stuffing myself. Now, I do notice that I will move towards certain foods, sometimes depending on mood. Might not have purely to do with, just physiology and what's naturally wanted in the body at the moment. Okay, so just think about what's the worst that could happen if you stop this behavior. What are you left with? What is raw and exposed and out in the open if you don't have your compulsive thing to, hide and distract and help you avoid? Just say, thank you very much, compulsive behavior. You have been so good to me to try to help me forget about it, forget about things. But now I need to look because I don't want to be in this cycle anymore. So what is it that you find frightening? What else? What is the worst that could happen if you didn't have your compulsive behavior to deal with, if it just suddenly ended for you? It's really amazing. Some people will say, my God, that's all I ever wanted. Of course I want no obsession with food. God, how could I not want that? That would be the best thing that ever happened. There is some part of the brilliant human mind that is so eager to keep you safe, and it even wants to help you out by making sure you don't see or know what it is that's scary again, because you had enough of that the first few times, right? So it's helping you. It's just the most amazing, magnificent kind of setup, but it's really difficult. It's got a lot of energy all tight packed into it, And you're going to have to let that energy out somewhere. So that's why they call it hidden beliefs or unconscious things or something below the surface, but it comes out in these weird behaviors. It has a pretty weird behavior, the way I used to eat, starving myself all day and then eating like a maniac, just stuffing myself. And then I'd want to purge, like by vomiting or over-exercising or starving again. Very extreme, very whacked out, and it took all of my time and attention. So I didn't have to think about other stuff that really freaked me out that was totally out of control, that I felt like I couldn't handle when it came to human contact, real intimacy. So just wonder about that today. I'll leave you with only that one question. This is one of the principles, the founding sort of principles that needs to be uncovered when it comes to food and eating and when it comes to the eating peace process. Now, I do want to share, I'm about to start an eating peace process. It's completely new, completely revamped. Everyone's going to get these short webinars that I share so that you can watch on your own time during the weeks as we unfold this work together. We start January 14th and it goes until the end of March. But there will be 2 times that there's a live call each week. And on the live calls, guess what we'll be doing? The work of Byron Katie. And we will be doing this work, which is a deep way to explore your greatest fears, your arguments with reality, your beliefs that you have that you're really nervous about, anything that creates anxiety in your life. That's what we're going to be exploring during these live calls. So a mindful investigation of your experience that's bothered you. It doesn't necessarily have to do with food and eating, although I will be giving people exercises and prompts that help you move from the food and eating process into what it could be that's bothering you, so that you don't go too far out, doing your very brilliant avoiding nature, avoiding cycle. So you come back and get close to it so you can really investigate and see. And then all in between, just there's 2 live calls. You can come to 1 or 2 live calls a week. But I'll just be building the program and sharing with you the webinars as the program unfolds so that you can watch and bring into practice and do this in your daily life, but do it with support of this small group. It's just a small group that I take so that everybody gets a chance. Everybody can be on live calls and get attention that you need, personal attention. So I'm excited to go through this program. I love it. I love noticing in a very subtle way compulsions that still exist, to avoid or to distract or get away from something or just not do what I say I wanted to do. Just watching life do that. And I will be right along there with you, right alongside with you, doing the same thing with some of the experiences I have in my life that feel like autopilot protection mechanism instead of just raw, open, fearless experiencing of reality. It's like an easing into it. I've noticed that it's so wonderful to do that with a group, with support. Even if you're living your own life and the way you're doing it is on the phone and online by, watching webinars. It's amazing that technology exists that we can all do that together. So Eating Peace process starts January 14th. Of course, I am doing this Eating Peace retreat. There's 1 last minute spot. It's basically full. There's 1 spot available last minute for anybody who wants to join. The retreat is January 19th to 22nd. It's a deep immersion. You come and I'm with you for like 12 hours a day, including eating. I love doing it. It's a lot of time and attention, and we do some of this work too on what's the worst that could happen. So just consider that question. What's the worst? What could I be afraid of in this moment? And let yourself find out instead of just trying to not be afraid all the time, or run your anxiety out so that you exhaust yourself and you have to go to bed, which is what I used to do too after binge eating and exercise and everything that I would just like zone out and go to bed, shut down, oblivion. That's a good way to rest, except for I still would never have addressed the original thing that I felt so nervous about with people, how I was with people in the world. I still feel shy. I am a shy, fairly introverted person. It's amazing that I do retreats and work with people, but I love intimacy. I love honesty. And I find that is the way to freedom. That is the way out of the pain of arguing with reality. So I hope you'll join me on a program this year, but I'll keep on doing these Eating Peace videos because I love to share. They're powerful for me. Love the comments and I love hearing from you. And I know some people want to do this work on their own and not sign up or pay for a program, and that's okay too. That has its place in this world as well. So thanks for listening, everybody. All right, if you have any questions, write grace@workwithgrace.com. And if you want to check out any of the programs that I've just mentioned, go to workwithgrace.com, click on the Programs tab, and as you scroll down, you'll see all these links and these programs. Look at the Eating Peace ones, because they're the ones that are unrolling right now. The Eating Peace online immersion, Eating Peace process, the retreat, and I'll be sure to be teaching the basics course at some point down the road, later in the spring. Okay, lots of love. Bye, everybody.